we walked out of there and I was singing the songs and she's like, you got to stop. And I'm like, I can't. I can't. It's in my head.
Yeah.
Like the unlimited, it's there.
Yeah.
I got it in my head.
Well, yeah, so I haven't seen it now. Erin did want me to watch it, but she had rented it at the house.
Mm-hmm. And
I kind of caught parts of it, but I didn't sit down and watch the whole thing.
No, and I'm not trying to say everybody at work that I have told about seeing it, not everybody liked it. There's like one or two that were like, it wasn't for me. But then there were a couple guys that were like, you're right. It was really good. We rented it. And I was like, and I'm not trying to like overhype it. And I probably already did at work. But like the theater, it was so more impactful. I felt like, I mean, the feeling of
just
the songs,
the sound,
being immersed in it. It was so incredible. And it's like, I bet it's great at home, but like when you could pause it, cause like, you know, the dogs had to go outside or something like that. It's like, well, okay, well,
You lose it a little bit. You're not 100% there for the movie.
Exactly.
So, you know, getting back to aviation, the witch fly.
Yeah, they fly. They defy gravity. We're just rehashing jokes we've had through text message already. So
that's perfect.
This is
that
terrible.
might make for a great podcast.
Yeah, all of this is pre-scripted via dumb text chain. So we've been talking about that a lot at work.
Yeah. That sounds like...
I've been trying to get people to watch it.
Yeah. So how many people have watched it?
Because of you.
I don't know if it's like, I think it's mainly the wives that were driving force. And I was like, dude, it's good enough to go watch. I'd say honestly, probably 4 or 5.
Okay.
That were just, there was one, most of them were just like, no, it's not for me. And I'm like, just go watch it.
Just
like
go.
1, your wife wants to, but like 2, it's good.
How long is it?
It's like 3 some change.
It's
maybe.
pretty long. Yeah.
It is incredibly long. It's worth it.
The movies have been getting longer and longer like that.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah. So you really came to talk about flying, right?
No, not at all, actually.
He doesn't fly.
That's right. He doesn't fly.
That's so rude. You sound like a coworker of mine. Every time they're like, what do you think this pilot's doing? And like, I'm in the room. They're like, what do you think, Jake? And I'm like, well, and I'll try to start like kind of like guessing on what's going on. And well, I got one coworker just like, you're not a pilot. You've not flown in like 8 years. You don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, God, come on. I'm trying some slack.
I got memories.
Yeah, exactly.
I got memories.
I did a discovery flight with Ryan at one time. And
and then you went and flew. Then you did a flight with Brad too. So, you know.
And again, you guys were just letting me be a little kid. So I appreciate that.
So right now, how hard would it be to fly? With
the
fog was
the fog. We were just talking about this with some of the instructors out there. The fog is what is the most dangerous, like low ceilings and stuff like that. Okay, yeah, like you can usually punch through them if you have an IFR aircraft, but like the fog, if you can't see your hand in front of your face, you can't see the runway.
You probably shouldn't fly.
No, and you know, and it's. You know, a lot of times it's people trying to come in, and it's not so much people leaving because they can be like, nah, I'm not doing this. But it's the guys coming in where it's like, this is their destination.
Oh, after they've been flying out of the fog.
Yeah. Or they're coming from like, let's say Baton Rouge or Houston.
Yeah.
And they get to this point, they got to make a decision on whether or not they're going to actually try and stick the landing or if they're going to go around, which is, you know, still a safe option. But we have like the lights turned all the way up. We have all the stuff we can do for them. And it's just like, can you see it or not? You get to the minimums, and it's like the minimums are like 250 or something like that.
Yeah, depending on which side,
which runway. So it's like if you're at like 250 and you can't see the runway, that's scary. And you're, you know,
and I don't think there's approach lights on 4 right. So if you're using 4 right, I want to say there's not like you have on 22 left where you got the mouse or
there's none.
Well, there's city right there. Like you got Highway 90.
Yeah,
and
so they can't.
It's that
they didn't
one.
build out any kind of lights. Yeah.
So the lights. So there are lights, but it starts like where you
at
need
the
to
runway,
land.
pretty much. Yeah.
Where 22 left's got like the flashy sequence lights where it's like, come this way.
So you can get down a little bit lower if you see those lights. So the visibility can be a little bit lower.
Mm-hmm. So it's like if you can't fly, if you can't see the runway, like it's intimidating.
Yeah.
Well, I would assume so.
No, and you know, and
as a pilot, you're going, I don't want to go miss. I don't want to go miss.
Exactly.
I don't want to go miss.
That get their itis.
Yeah.
So
like
do y'all have to tell them? No, you're on track. Like you're fine.
No.
Okay.
We don't
can't.
honestly. So there's a couple things for air traffic where it's like the pilots obviously know there's called critical phases of flight, departure and takeoff and landing. are the two like main critical
Departure and
phases.
takeoff.
Yeah. Those are the two main critical phases. So it's like we don't want to interrupt them at all. Like we'll give them pertinent stuff if it's like real, like there's birds or there's traffic or something. We'll give you that stuff. But a lot of times, if it's just informational, we'll be like, no need to respond.
Yeah.
You're still cleared to land or whatever. But
okay.
like we want to let them fly the plane as much as possible.
Yeah.
So if they end up going around, it's it's wholly on the pilot.
It's not because y'all told them you can't see, don't land.
Yeah. We're not the sky police. If you guys find a hole in the clouds, it's good enough for us.
Well, y'all don't do ASR approaches anymore.
Correct.
Yes.
Wait.
So those are where the
that's
controller,
where they do tell them.
Yeah, they do guide.
That's like the
tell
left,
you where to turn.
turn left, turn right.
That's why I was confused because we had that conversation, but we don't do it here. That's what it was.
That's
we used to.
One of the questions actually our examiners will ask sometimes is, I think one of the guys got a question of like, what's the easiest approach to do if if nothing's working, I guess, and his answer he wanted was ASR.
It's such like a
but
niche answer. Like how?
Yes.
Who's he asking this to? Like commercial
I think
check
it's
rides?
instrument. I think it's instrument.
Okay, I suppose.
Yeah,
but
it
like,
wasn't just normal private.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't normal private. Because
like
already somebody.
I was about to say, ASR is like you'd be hard pressed to find places that still do them.
Well,
Wait, is that what it was? What do you do if your instruments aren't working? What's the easiest way to land?
Well, you could do a no gyro. Well, if you got a no gyro, like you'd lose your.
But that was the question.
Yeah, it was something like that. There's always been construction in Lafayette, but it was at this point there was something a lot of construction. I think on the main runway, and that's all they had was ASR
here
for
that's
four
wild.
right. Yeah, I remember doing a ASR approach for
all
four
they
right.
had.
Yeah, because everything was either hadn't been flight checked or
that's wild,
was out. Whatever.
I mean, I think they're definitely a beneficial tool. They're a great approach, and if you're down to like you got nothing and this is your last chance, like okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
But
will y'all do that even though y'all don't do that?
No.
Okay.
No. It was one of those things we like y'all would do like night landings and take off for currency.
Yeah.
We would have currency. We would do 3 a quarter. We would like either
ask somebody.
Yeah, somebody would be like, hey, we want to do an ASR. I'm like, all right, cool. And we would write it down, or we'd be like, hey, we need to do one more ASR this quarter. You want to do one for me? And then like reluctant pilots be like, yeah, sure.
I mean,
so it was hard to keep up.
Not really. I mean, it was like anything. If you do it early on, then you're
it over with.
Yeah.
So like for us, like it'd be great to be able to train students on it. But
as soon as we took it away, enough people were like, "Why did you stop doing this?" And we're like,
"Of course,
we don't make the rules. Our manager did." So sorry.
Speaking of Murphy's Law,
yeah, exactly. And it was like, wow, we have a lot of people that really want to do this now.
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
Well,
it was mainly like rotorcraft that wanted to do a lot of them, and then a couple of you guys would want to do them.
That's what we call helicopters.
Oh,
it's a company, but yeah, it's mainly helicopters.
So it's like Kleenex.
Exactly. Just like Kleenex. But no, so helicopters are the easiest ones because they're the slowest. Cessna's next easiest because again they're the slowest. So it's like if you're telling them to turn right, stop turn, or if you're telling them turn right to this heading, it's really hard to like overshoot the final. But if you like, I think I did once. I did it one with like a beach jet. I really regretted asking him because it was just like it was over in like half a minute. And it was just like, turn right, stop turn. Turn left, stop turn. And it was like, oh my gosh.
Because it's so big? Is that what
they just move so fast?
Yeah, they have like 120, 130 knots on final is like the slowest they go. So it's like, what have I done?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm never going to do that again.
And then you were too far in it to be like, never mind.
Yeah, exactly. It's like once he's there. I think the guy might have been flying the ILS for me, but whatever.
He put in the ILS just to help out.
It was one of those things like, yeah, sure, we'll do an ASR.
Yeah. I was looking up, like you can look up the minimums for ASRs, and because I was talking to somebody about it, and then I was saying, yeah, Baton Rouge has it, and I started looking, and I couldn't find minimums for Baton Rouge, so I guess they don't have it either.
That's a good question. When we did them, I don't know where. I don't think those are published. So
yeah, well, it's under if you're in ForeFlight. I don't know how familiar you are with ForeFlight.
I mean,
but
vaguely.
it's on the the FAA charts,
Mm-hmm.
how they're bond together.
flips,
it's in there. Yeah, it's in
Is
the
it
flips.
really? I'll have to check that out. We still get those published, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, the digital now. You know,
Well,
there's digital things now.
That's the thing is like I remember at the flight school I was at where they would come back, every instructor would get like their own box of like, here are all the charts that you need.
Yeah.
And it's like now that you guys are on 4Flight or whatever, it's just like, okay, that's streamlined. So that's great. And all the internet out there. Well, but like the FAA still gets them. And it's like, I can't tell you the last time somebody pulled that out.
Yeah. Oh, they're collecting dust.
We update them. No, you have
to update them so they don't collect that much dust.
We got a guy downstairs that comes up and just updates the charts. Yeah. And it's like, wow.
Meanwhile, the pilots are using this iPad with all the charts. Every update,
yeah,
just hit the update button. You're good to go.
It's like just this guy in like a trench coat, just sunglasses. He's in there going, he's like, I got this.
That's their chart updator guy.
And they still update like 56 days. So it's like that's just a lot of stuff. And imagine all the facilities.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just kind of wild. But
so the FAA just started. With CFIs, CFI licenses have the expiration date.
Mm-hmm.
So they just got rid of that.
There's no expiration for CFIs?
Well, they still expire, but they're not going to send you a card every time.
Oh, okay.
So they take the expiration. So my card currently has expiration. They just started this. It was in December.
Oh, okay, cool.
Mine still has an expiration date. So when I get a new one, it won't have an expiration date.
Interesting.
But there's a recency of experience or something that they're calling that now.
So like if the ramp agent checks you out, they just Google your credentials and see like,
I guess that's how they're going to have to do it.
Yeah, because that was the whole thing I remember was like you got to have all your stuff on you. So if a ramp agent and you got it all right there and it's all, you got to make sure it's up to date because like they're not doing the legwork because they're just going to check your stuff. But if you don't have an expiration date, it's like in 3 years, what happens?
Well, so it's on IACRA, which is what we use to sign off everybody. That's where it won't let you sign off if you're expired.
Oh,
so that's where they keep track of the date online, so that if you try to sign somebody off, it won't let you. It says, you need to renew.
I just imagine it'll be like when a cop pulls you over and it's like, let me see your license. I'll be right back.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, you've got 3 warrants for your arrest.
Yeah, that's right.
Come with me.
Yeah.
Ramp agent's like, yeah, just turn that aircraft off. Go ahead.
Yeah, get out.
So
you're under arrest.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why they did that.
They don't want to spend money on these plastic cards.
Well, like we were just talking about with the printed charts. Like I'm not trying to say it's antiquated because I think it has a place, but like everybody needs all that stuff.
Yeah.
And think it was, I was flying almost 10 years ago now, which is sad to think about. So
you're not a pilot, right?
Yeah, I'm not a pilot. But it's like 10 years ago, and now that's like you guys aren't doing it because you don't have to, which is, so there is change, but it's just so slow and incremental. But
well, like RNAV approaches, they're not considering precision
still
approaches.
Not, which is wild to me.
It is. You can go all the way down to 200 feet above the ground and just not.
And I always equated that as like, it's up to the aircraft to have the tighter specifications, right? Where it's like loss and WAS or whatever. Yeah. So it's like if you have like the lowest, if you have like, RNAV approach basic, where it's like the free version, and it's like, well, that's clearly not as precision as an ILS.
Yeah.
But if you have like Pro and you can go lower than the ILS, then that should be precision. But like, how do they class?
Yeah, I don't know how they.
Bigger guys, guys with bigger brains than me.
Yeah,
they're figuring all that stuff out.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know of anybody who doesn't have WAS now. I mean, as if you buy and install a GPS now, they all have WAS.
Really?
Pretty much.
Is it still like a monthly subscription?
You got to have the
database
updates
and stuff.
Yeah, database updates. Yeah. So that's a requirement. You got to make sure before you go fly IFR that you have database updates.
Okay.
I don't know a lot about what y'all are talking about, but I'll ask one. What's WAS?
Wide Area Augmentation System.
Yes. So basically what it does is...
You asked the question, I answered.
Yes, that is what it stands for. That is what it... And what that means, I don't know.
Ryan's response to it. Yes, good job, Jake.
No, I think it deals with the refinement area for like when the satellites are using your location. So, right, GPS system is a 4D where it's like lat long, altitude, and time. So all those together give you the satellites where you're at in the globe
At a given time.
Yes. So with more data they input, the tighter the restriction becomes. So the more specific your spot becomes.
And that's what WASP does?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Which means that you are now easier to locate on this final and over the airport. So they know exactly. You are 300 feet. You're like 5 feet off of what you're supposed to be.
He explained it way better than I would have.
How would you explain it?
It sounded great.
That was a great question.
I would have stuttered and it wouldn't have made any sense.
So it's this thing that...
yeah, that's right.
I think about this a lot.
Yeah.
No. On an instrument approach, even for like the ILS, you'll have just the localizer, which is the least specific. It's a non-precision approach. But if you have the equipment to do a full ILS, then you can do localizer and glide path, which makes it a precision approach and gives you lower tolerances. It's the same thing for RNAVs with LOS and WAS.
He's a good instructor. He should,
honestly. So that kind of, that's good segue.
Yeah.
That reminds me. So that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Before we go there,
Yeah.
your socks
Yeah.
are wonderful.
That's my baby. That's my little girl. My wife got these for Father's Day. And
That's
I love
awesome.
them. So it's just they're part of the rotation now. I wanted to ask you about because like we do instruction as far as like air traffic, and there's a process for that. I kind of wanted to pick your brain about like one, how much you're instructing, and then like kind of what you prefer. Like if there's like a favorite certificate or a favorite maneuver or something that you've got, because like I just always think that's cool.
Well, I
know you have a bunch of instructors.
Yeah, I'm trying not to instruct.
Okay.
But I mean, I've been doing CFI stuff more mainly now.
Oh, you're teaching the CFIs?
Yeah. So we've been lately have 4 or 5 CFIs kind of all in the same.
Yeah, a group or something.
Yeah, a group kind of going through the same thing, and so I've been focusing on that, but I'm trying to stay out of like private and instrument and commercial.
I guess to help get the CFIs more time or whatever.
Yeah, give them more time, and then
that's good.
I was doing the mock check rides or pre-solo flights.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody was about to solo, then I'd go fly with them first, kind of a stage check, really.
Yeah, that's good.
And then if I said, yeah, they're good to go, or hey, they need to go up and do some more emergency procedures because they messed up on that, then we would do that. And but I was actually moving Brennan kind of into doing that role.
Okay.
Where he's doing the checks more, and I'm just kind of doing the CFI stuff. And
well, when you were instructed, did you have like anything favorite? Because like, so
I mean, I like instrument because you don't really have to work as much.
Yeah, I mean, you set the friction and you just kind of let it ride.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
You guys don't have autopilot on any of your stuff, do you?
No.
Not even like the Cirrus or anything like that?
The Cirrus had autopilot, yeah.
That was the one thing at the flight school I was at. It was like some of the Cherokees had autopilot, and I was
Yeah.
like, this is nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I'm flying with somebody with autopilot, I'm telling them use it. Oh, well, if it's a brand new instrument student, no, I want them to hand fly everything.
Yeah.
But like once they start getting to their check ride, I'm like, use it as much as you can.
Yeah.
It helps a lot, especially because in this environment, when you're out here practicing approach after approach after approach,
Yeah.
it helps to set the autopilot, pull out your chart, get the GPS set up.
Yeah.
And
It's definitely a good tool.
Yeah. And
Like
if you're hand flying, you got to fly the plane, you got to pull the chart out, got to set
Absolutely.
up GPS and all.
And it's a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Especially if you go, since now we've been going to Abbeville or New Iberia to do approaches.
Mm-hmm.
Like Abbeville, I think I did. So I had to do like a recurrent thing for Cirrus.
Yeah.
And we did that 28-mile arc in Abbeville.
Oh, no, you did not.
Yes. Yeah.
That's was that the VOR Bravo or whatever?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
my
Well,
gosh.
we went to Lake Charles and we shot an approach. And then,
okay, good.
on the way back, we did the arc.
We've had people, whenever you guys, not just you guys, but whenever anybody asks for that, like off of Lafayette, we're like, are you sure?
Yeah.
You want to, and especially like in a Cessna.
Yes.
You want to spend 45 minutes on this approach?
Yes.
Okay. Like we'll let you, but
What's going on?
there's an approach in the Abbeville, and for the most part, approaches are like kind of straight lines, 90-degree angles.
Mm-hmm.
Like you hit this, you go here, you do that, and they can be lengthy, but like not terribly. This one, it's got an arc where you follow different radials from the VOR. and you're supposed to. It's a lot of moving parts for this one approach. And the arc is like you said, 28 miles.
I think it's a 28 miles. So you go out from Lafayette 28 miles, and then you turn.
And you
in this case, you would turn left, and you arc all the way around to south of Abbeville
to join a straight-in final for one of the runways.
To line up for one of the runways in Abbeville. Actually, it doesn't even line up with the runway. It's like midfield.
Yeah.
It's like middle of the runway.
And it's just this long, drawn out, and it's great if you want to practice arcs.
Why is that the approach?
Back in the olden days.
I don't know. Yeah, I have no clue.
It just is because it is.
Yes, it is because back in the olden days, that's how they had it. But like it's now, not a lot of people are really doing arcs because you have so many other options.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the FAA says we have to practice it. So yours show.
Does it specify VOR
well,
arcs?
it says DME arcs in the ACS.
Really? I forgot.
Now, I think an examiner is not supposed to do it unless there is a published arc. You know, you can't just make up an arc.
Yeah.
So it's so like, and then the fact that we're not allowed to do 1-1 right now,
yeah.
he can't do that.
Sure. You
But-
guys can't even like do like the VFR overlay.
I mean, we could to just practice it.
No, but like as the examiner can't be like.
No, he
yeah.
can't do that
Because
No.
it's not real.
Yeah, because y'all have to clear it.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd have to ask a situational question to see.
That's interesting. But yeah, but that anytime you guys going to Lake Charles and then coming back and like having it be like the end of the trip makes more sense.
Yeah, so after I did that, and then we did the whole circle in Abbeville and stuff, and then took off, and then I think y'all were using Fort Wright, and that approach right there, coming out of Abbeville and
Just get
doing
set
the
up for the next one,
you have no time.
Yeah.
Especially in the Cirrus is a little bit faster, so
Oh,
you
sure.
have zero. So you know, I tell people just ask for vectors, extra vectors, so that
Yeah, 'cause
if
we
you're
could
not
just-
ready to set up, because you don't know if I'm ready to set
And
up.
a lot of times we kind of think you want it quick.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if that's what you want, because we don't want to delay what y'all are doing
Yeah,
any more than we have to. And
Yeah.
if there's no traffic, then we'll get you right in there if that's what you want. But if you're not set up because it takes some time, like you're saying, then yeah, just ask. We got no
Yeah.
problem boxing you around or kind of bringing you out a little bit wide or something.
yeah, yeah. And I think some people are either don't know about that option or scared to ask. you
Well,
know?
I mean, and that's kind of the whole point of Air Lafayette that we do, and that's kind of what I imagine some of the point of this is, to where it's like, yeah, just we are there to service you guys,
Yeah.
give you the best service possible. So if there's something you want and we can make it work, we'll do that.
Yeah.
You want to go maneuver over the cage dome? If there's no traffic, I have no reason to not let you do that. If you want
It's that
extra
departure
vectors,
corridor. Sometimes it's in that departure corridor.
which again, but we
Yeah.
can accomplish all that through coordination. So
Yeah.
if radar's talking to local, and I'd be like, hey, I got this guy. Okay, cool. Like that's approved. Then
It's
why
all
would we
good.
stop you?
Yeah.
If
I didn't have my coffee this morning. No, you can't.
No.
So
Those exist, I'm sure.
yeah, they do, but it's one of those like, really?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, fine.
Please, can I please?
But like I said, everybody wants to accommodate what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
And if it's for training, if it's for safety, obviously there's priorities. Or it's like if you're getting set up for like a 12-mile final and there's a regional 20 miles out, you might get a little extra vector just because you're not quite the priority. But
you're not fast. I mean, if matching up.
yeah, aircraft characteristics is a big part of air traffic. A lot of times when you guys are like, it's tough because like when you guys are going to do like maneuvers to the north or something, that's all well and good. I'd rather you talk to us so we can keep giving you traffic advisories. It's like once you start getting closer, like Opelousas, where it's like you should probably be on CTAF at this point because that's safer.
Yeah.
Because there's traffic doing pattern work there or something. Yeah.
Speaking of the Air Lafayette, the last one we had we had gumbo.
Huge success.
Yeah, we had gumbo. But also we talked about the VFR on top, which is one of those things or over the top or
VFR on top, yeah. Over the top.
Over the top. That's one of those things that nobody really uses much. And they don't it's not understood very well.
Yeah.
And
what is it?
It's a way to, so like let's say there's a low layer, the ceiling's at like 900, so it's like 900 broken, and it's a thick layer to where it's like we're technically IFR in the field, but the ground visibility, it's 10 statute miles, it's clear in a million below the clouds, so you can see everything.
It's not foggy or anything.
So it's just we're right at the cusp of being the difference between IFR and VFR. So if we're technically IFR and there's a VFR guy that wants to go out and it's reported that the ceiling is like really thin, and it's like, well, I could probably find a hole. They could go VFR on top, which lets them go technically depart IFR, but then they get on top VFR and then they're above the clouds and they're VFR and they can maneuver as they need to.
Gotcha. Because that's where it's clear.
Yeah. And it's, you know, they're rated for IFR and all that stuff. They can get out, do what they want to, and then go VFR and maneuver. Because that's the difference between IFR flights. Is IFR is mainly point to point.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to be goofing off on IFR. You're not supposed to be doing maneuvers or like maneuvering somewhere and doing like practice approaches or whatever. Like you're doing IFR to get to somewhere through poor weather. And if you're VFR, it's mainly for either leisure flight or training or something like that. So it's like,
and that makes a lot of sense. Like visual, I'm looking around. This is great.
Yeah.
And VFR, they're supposed to remain clear clouds and see and observe, like you were saying earlier. So, you know, if you're seeing and observing, then you're supposed to dodge stuff that's in your way. So a lot of times, early trainees at air traffic will be like, "What's this VFR guy doing? Why isn't he going straight to the field?" And it's like, well, he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
We don't know what's in front of him. Maybe there's a cloud buildup. Maybe there's a flock of birds. Maybe there's something that's like, and it's like maybe he wants to go look at his house.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, if we're not restricting them, then they can do what they want. Kind of.
That's crazy. It's like a go-kart or like a golf cart in the air.
I loved flying helicopters, especially VFR, because it felt like my own little personal roller coaster.
Yeah.
It was the most fun.
Yeah.
And it's like you getting in and out of like confined areas and like doing like power off 180s and stuff. Man, it's fun.
Yeah.
But so that's why I kind of wanted to ask you about that, because that's my favorite as a helicopter instructor was teaching people how to hover, because it felt like a little rodeo. And it was just cool to see that transition of like, you know, giving them one control at a time, either the collective or the cyclic or the pedals, and then being like, you know, okay, you've got this, and seeing them kind of struggle with it.
Yeah.
And then, okay, I got it. We're safe.
Yeah.
Let's try it again. And then doing like, after like a week or so of like teaching them how to hover, seeing that confidence of like them being like, oh, I can hover now. I can hover a helicopter.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to see that. So I was just wondering kind of
thinking about it like that, I guess the same type of deal, which gives you kind of a
hovering
thrill. No, we don't have hovering. But the same kind of deal, I guess, would be for us would be landings. You know, it's kind of rewarding once they get it, you know, once they can see it and they do a smooth landing and you're like, oh, well, I did, you know,
because the
kind of an
takeoff
accomplishment.
The take not to like belittle it, but like the takeoff is pretty straightforward.
Oh yeah.
But the landing is you're white knuckling. I remember when I was doing my crossover, I think I was doing like my first solo in the pattern work, and then my buddy who was the instructor like didn't care. He's like, just, you know, you got it. You're an instructor. You've got plenty of time. You figure it out. So I was in the pattern and I did the porpoising. Yeah. Where I oh man. And I eventually got it under control where I stopped it. And the controller was a buddy of mine. He was like, oh, you're cleared for touch and go, touch and go, touch and go. And I was like, thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. It was nice because it diffused my like nervousness. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm fine. Everything's goofy, but whatever.
Oh, that's funny.
So it's one of those things I could imagine like being next to somebody learning how to like smooth, like having their first smooth landing being pretty gratifying.
Yeah. And it's really the actual flare, because I can talk somebody through lining up and putting in flaps and pulling power and all that stuff. But it's when you get above the ground and just trying to understand when to pull back and how much you need to pull back and all
not
that
doing
stuff.
It too soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Land like a
No,
wheelie.
and it's a different perspective than you would think it would be.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
You're like, no, I should see the ground right now.
I don't like this. Yeah.
New private pilots, I think, get confused with the whole reporting their descent, you know, like at VFR, because I know a lot of people will call and say, 3,500 requesting a descent, start of descent or whatever.
You're like doing an overflight or something from like one airport to the next, and you're at like 4,500 or 3,500. You know, you're just VFR and you want to come into your airport. Sometimes I'm good about catching it being like VFR descent, your discretion.
Yeah.
But sometimes like people will be like 8 miles from the field, be like, can we start our descent? And it's like, please do. Yeah. I need you to land. On the inverse, there's a couple, I think they're IFR students, but there's a couple guys that fly and they'll ask like, can we start our descent? And they're like at 4,000.
Yeah.
And they're like 30 miles away. I'm like, yeah, sure, I guess. Do what you want.
Yes, yeah.
Descend and maintain 2,000.
Yeah.
Like that's the lowest I can get you. But
Is
the
it because
VFR
they're
guys,
so far?
yeah.
So it's like I don't even know how you got on this radio channel.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah. But the VFR guys, I think it might just be confusion of like,
Yeah.
what can we do? And it's like, well, I need you just to be VFR and, start. Now, if you start to descend too far or too quickly, then I'll be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, that's unsafe. But
so
like,
you'll contact them without them contacting you
sometimes, yeah.
if needed.
Yeah.
Well, that would be in a case where there might be an obstacle, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
Like,
Or honestly, like if you're like super low for the terrain, like why are you 800 feet, 20 miles away?
yeah.
And you're not maneuvering. Like a lot of times we talked about where it's like, we would love it if you guys told us we're doing like low level maneuvers. Perfect. Now we're not going to get worried looking at you being like, what is this guy doing
Yeah.
at 800 feet or lower? That's crazy. For us, it can be terrifying
Yeah.
because it's like, you're not telling us anything. And it's just like, it could be the worst case scenario and nobody wants to deal with that. So
you can't do anything about it if you...
we just reach out on the radio and you feel so helpless, but it's like, and then you're like, oh no, we're fine. Good, bud. Thank you.
We're good. Don't worry about it.
Good for you.
Good
Well,
for you. Just checking in.
Like we try to.
There's like a huge sigh of relief. Oh, thank God.
There's an applaud in the tower.
That's happened before.
I mean, can you believe this guy? Yeah, you like that?
Yes.
It was a nice landing. I had to applaud.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
So we were working. I was working the other day, and
This is recent.
yeah, for
Sort of.
who knows?
This is just a story, Justin.
Pretty much gusty winds down runway 29er.
Oh, no.
And we were just talking about how nice it is to have that runway back. And I think you were coming in with a student. I don't know who the student was, but you were coming in and doing a power off 180.
He was a CFI student, actually. We were
Coming. Oh, really?
Yeah, we were
That's
practicing
perfect.
power off
It looked
180.
nice.
Yeah.
So he's coming in for doing the approach, but we had just had a regional guy land, and the way they have to taxi, they would have to cross that runway. But since he was doing his 180, he's landing that runway, so this regional had to hold short. So I'm sitting there talking to the regional, and I'm like, "Hey, you ready to see a nice landing?"
We had an audience.
And he's like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
So this is
And they could hear you. saying
no,
that.
he could. He was on tower.
Yeah,
I
it was a
working
different
ground.
frequency. So I didn't know he was talking to the airline guy.
So you don't know that he said, "You ready to see a nice
Yeah.
one?" This is
Yeah.
awesome.
So and it's funny because it's a plane full of people, and it's just like watching the Cessna come in doing this really nice like float landing almost.
Yeah.
And they got to like 5 feet off the ground, and they did that perfect little flare we were talking about, and just kind of gently touched down. And it was just
You could hear it.
congratulations.
Y'all can hear it? That's awesome.
It was real good.
Yeah.
So were you nervous because you said it? You said, "Are y'all ready to see a nice landing?"
Maybe a little bit.
I think he was
And you're
being
like-
sarcastic
and
too.
you're like,
I
Ryan-
think.
No, I mean like it was one of those like you have the regional guy had no choice but to sit there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like
And Jake's there like, "Ryan, please have a nice landing. Please have a nice landing."
yeah, a little nervous for you,
Yeah.
but you know,
But it was beautiful. Apparently, that's awesome.
it was beautiful. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah,
that you
it was
guys-
just so windy that when we turned on final, we pretty much stopped and just came down.
Oh wow.
And that's
Yeah.
that's the great thing about having that crossing runway.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's so nice. We were talking about it earlier. It's so nice to have back.
So it would not have been fun on the other one.
No.
Oh no, it'd have been a crosswind and you'd been fighting
Yeah.
it with your controls and everything and bumpy.
When you got a straight headwind on a landing, that's exactly what you want.
I got you.
And it makes takeoff and landing so much easier.
So even though he's not a pilot, he knows this.
But yeah, he has some knowledge.
Why I oughta. The gusty winds were the one thing that made it tricky, but
Yeah,
you guys handled it great. So
it was
cool.
rough taking off out of all 29. Just like coming over the city, and it was just so gusty and bumpy and everything. You know.
So 29's the other one.
Yeah, it's the inverse of 1-1. Yeah. I was just curious about how you liked instructing and kind of what you're doing, but that's kind of, obviously this is your company. It makes more sense for you to kind of step back and get some time. Plus, you probably do you even log your time anymore?
No.
That's a no.
No, I had a
No.
DPE that he would do all of our check rides for fixed wing and helicopter.
Yeah.
He was like the guy in South Georgia, and I remember he was really nonchalant about everything, and it was just like, what's your logbook look like? And he's like, currency.
Yeah.
I don't. He's like 10,000s of hours, tens of thousands of hours, and I was just like, that's insane.
Yeah.
He was an older gentleman,
Yeah.
but it was just like, I couldn't even fathom that.
I wonder how many Peyton has.
So I wonder what Peyton has too. And I wonder if
doubt
he
he
logs
logs it.
Yeah.
I doubt he does, man. I mean, just currency.
But yeah, no, I don't. I kind of got lazy at some point and just haven't logged anything.
You've flown so much for so many different companies, and now this is your flight school. I think it's smart to kind of back off, but obviously you're trying to get these younger guys some time, and get them in the field.
Yeah.
And I mean, I enjoy I mean, that's the whole. I usually get excited when I have to explain something to somebody, you know. And
if you haven't noticed,
Did you hear me go off on WAS earlier? I mean, come on now. I get it, man. I get it. It's just, I miss flight instruction so much because it's.
Come teach.
I would love to, but then the amount of time to get back. But it's one of those things where it's like, it's so interesting being with that one person and being like, I'm teaching this one person. With air traffic, it's still that same level of like one-on-one, but a lot of times it's either me and you, or like you and Dustin, or like Dustin and somebody else, and then like we'll kind of like
they
do like celebrity guest training almost, and it's just you can get it to where it's like, this is my trainee for these couple months or for this position, and then next year we do new schedules or something like that, or they change the training team up or whatever. But
is there a like, how do they do the training? I mean, you're not going to have the brand new guy teaching the brand new guy.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, so they give you like...
I mean, because you've been doing it for a little while. And so I would think you would be the trainee person or trainer person training a brand new trainee.
So we do, once you get fully checked out...
Get those words right.
Yeah. Once you get fully checked out in the facility... there's two different, there's the tower cab and the radar room, right? So if you get fully checked out in the tower cab, 6 months later, I believe, or maybe a year later, you would get you to like the training course. And it's a 3-day course of like how to train adults and stuff like that.
Do you have to do like FOI stuff or like psychology type stuff?
No, I wish it was more in depth. I really, and this is where I really fall back on my CFI stuff, because the CFI and II, like learning how to teach a ground school, learning about, I don't know how effective Maslow's pyramid is, but it's the same, like, if you're yelling at them in the cockpit, they're not going to learn as good, which makes sense. If they're hungry, they're going to be distracted, or if they're tired, and it's like, well, obviously. But we don't cover it as in depth.
Everybody that becomes a controller,
becomes a trainer. So at Lafayette, not necessarily some of the bigger facilities, because like at the bigger facilities you have like 200 plus people.
You probably have a training department.
You can kind of be more selective. Here we have 20 people. It's kind of like we have 5 trainees right now. Well, we will have 5 within the end of the month. So it's like, to not burn out like the 5 or 6 certified trainers, because they're the only ones that really, really want to do it. You kind of spread the load and be like, listen, I know you don't want to train, but like you're going to train
at least a little bit.
Just today. And it's like, okay.
Before you got assigned to Lafayette, you didn't have to take the training classes. When you got assigned is when you had to take them?
Yeah. So, and again, it's like, and for radar, I think it's, once you get fully checked out in radar, then it's 6 months after that. But you have to go through this little training class we do. It's 3 days. You have to go through this training class, and then it's like hominis dominus. You are now able to train. And
he's been watching a lot of Wicked.
Abracadabra. And then so you then are plugged in next to the new person, training them on whatever position it is. And again, it's not like you checked out on Tuesday, you go to the class on Wednesday, you're training somebody Thursday. Right. It's like you get checked out.
You get 6 a little months, experience.
Yeah, get, we call it seasoning.
Yeah.
You get a little seasoning on you. Get you, see some stuff, kind of scare yourself a little bit.
Put some Tony Sacheries on that.
Scare yourself a little bit.
Well, I mean, honestly, like, if you've got somebody that's over your shoulder being like, what are you doing with this? Like, what conflict do you see here? What are you going to do with that? It's easier to work through the problems. When you're by yourself and you're sitting there in your own head being like, oh no, what do I do with this? Then you kind of have to, it's one of those, it's the next level of being able to solve problems, is really doing it on your own. And it's that's
the same as flying too.
Exactly.
Once you solo somebody, they get a little bit better because they got to make those decisions.
There is no like other pilot safety net, and it's just the natural progression of things. So it's now, once you are fully checked out, you have that 6 months of seasoning, and then you're training somebody. Like I learned in CFI and II, and I tell everybody through this, trying to instruct somebody is the next level of learning how to do stuff, because now they're going to come up with these questions you'd never thought of, and you go, well, let me look that up real quick.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different style of learning, and it's still gratifying to be like, yeah, you got that. You got those traffic calls right. You got you're getting really, really good at this. But it's not as fun as like being in a cockpit.
Yeah. I was gonna say, you were talking about moments of like yours was when hovering, yours is landing. Is there one for
air traffic?
Yeah. Is there a moment where you're like, yeah?
Not really. It's such a, and this is the main difference, because it's so interesting, because it gets to a point where it's like I would rather work the traffic because it's a fun puzzle than to train you on how to work the traffic of the fun puzzle.
It's my puzzle.
No,
yes,
I'm not even joking. I heard that when I was in training, and I've said that out loud now, like recently, where it's like, I want to work this traffic. It's so much fun to work it. And it's like, to be like, what are you going to do, Dustin?
What would you
it's
do?
Not what I do, but all right. You know?
Obviously, you wouldn't say that.
No, obviously not. But the thing about air traffic is there's so much technique, right?
Yeah.
Just because you're doing it this way doesn't mean you're wrong. I wouldn't do it that way. But if you're doing it your way and it's still safe and efficient,
great.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how your brain sees the puzzle.
And for training in air traffic, it can be difficult to be like, what are you doing? And they'd be like, oh, and they explain it. You go, okay, I'm uncomfortable with it, but it's still safe.
But it worked.
Yeah, and it's working. So it's like one of those, like, you've got to relearn how other people think and like really get comfortable with who you're training and be like, listen, we didn't have like open and honest conversations about like, what was that? Oh, what are you seeing? Okay, I would have done it this way, but you know, we teach a lot of technique. There are hard and fast rules, but a lot of it's technique as well.
That's crazy. Is that happen with flying? Or is there like, there's one way to fly?
I mean,
I bet flying's a little bit more nuanced. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
yeah.
I
mean, so there are different techniques. Like, you know, the examiner has some techniques that he likes. That he'll usually in the debrief he'll talk about that kind of thing. So this is technique, and you know, but you should probably try to do it this way, kind of deal.
Yeah, and with flying, I imagine it's the little nuanced technique differences you're going to see are just going to be in how like just quick hand movements of the yoke or the throttle or something like that. Where it's air traffic, because it plays out and develops a little bit. You could be like, well, I would have speed restricted him here and then turned him this way. You turned him and then gave him altitude. So
there are multiple options to get the same result.
I mean, like based on experience too, like I'm sure y'all have that where somebody who's been doing it air traffic longer is going to have a different technique.
Absolutely.
And a new guy. But
I've learned so much from people that have retired and some of the older guys we have at Lafayette that have been working there 10 plus years, where they've seen tons of stuff. They've seen so many things, and it's like, oh, I should try it that way. Mm-hmm. And it's just one of those like metamorphosis things where it's like it inevitably happens to where you just kind of fuse like what you've learned and what you're doing and your comfort level with other people's styles. Yeah. And you go, did I do this, or did I learn this from somebody, or did I come up with this? And it doesn't really matter as long as you're keeping it safe. And then you are supposed to pass it on to the next person. And then they have the questions and you teach them technique, and you might learn something from your trainee and be like, oh wow, I would have never thought of that. That's kind of cool. So it's a cool process, but it's different just because flying is more fun than sitting in a chair being like, I want to do this.
Yeah. I mean, with flying, even as an instructor flying, you want to do the things instead of telling somebody how to do the things. You know, I can understand that because, you know, sometimes it's just nice to go by myself and just go fly around. And
it's tough too, because kind of like touching on what you're saying with students and trainees, they don't know technique. They don't
know what they're doing.
Well, honestly, like they don't know what's right or wrong really, and it's your job as the instructor to be like, these are the boundaries. This is the rules. This is how I do it. You give them your techniques, and then they kind of learn off that. Yeah. So if they don't have the experience, you can't really be like, that's a cool way to do it, because it's like you just lucked into that.
Yeah.
But the experienced guys is where it's like, oh, okay, so I see you did it because of this.
Yes.
So it can be a little different, but it's
and like when I teach somebody something, I try to explain why I did it. Why am I doing this way? You know, or what's going to happen down the road that maybe they don't know. Right now.
And a lot of times it's the questions that the students ask that kind of get you thinking of like, oh, maybe I could do it that way.
Yeah.
And then you kind of be like, you know what? Let's go ahead and try it out. Let's see how it looks. And part of the training with air traffic is, you know, being like letting them do their plan and being like, okay, I can fix this plan. I can correct it and make it safe and more efficient. But like, I need you to see like what your ideas are how it's going to unfold.
That's kind of the same example as like coming from Opelousas and they stay high.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, all right, well, I know I'd start descending back there, but
now what are you going to do?
I got to let you see that you're high.
Now what are you going to do 6 miles from the field at 5,000?
Yeah,
you know? Like,
that's right. That's kind of gotta also suck for y'all because you got to sit there. One, you got to let this unfold and be like, okay, now I'm going to have to fix it, and they're going to have to learn from it. You got to sit there and be like, oh, this is going to take another lap around the airport.
Yeah, we might have to do a go around or whatever.
Please don't just nose it over.
I got it. Yeah. Ryan's just sitting there waiting to pull it back. He's like, no, don't do it. Don't do it.
For the hover and stuff, that is kind of fun. That like, what are they going to do? Because you have to have so much confidence in your own ability to be like, I can fix whatever they're going to do.
Right. Yeah. And helicopters have 2 sets of things too?
Yeah, they've got the cyclic, which is the tilt of the whole disc, the collective, which is the individual pitch of the rotor blades, and then the foot pedals. So you're doing like 3 controls.
Pilot, co-pilot.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Or is there only
co-pilot.
one set of controls?
For most times, there's going to be 2 sets of controls.
Gotcha.
Robinsons have the ability to like take off one set.
I got you.
But for the most part, they're instructors.
You definitely want that other set on there when you're instructing.
So it's not like you have to. It's not like you have to like knock his hand off and try to fix it.
You could grab the middle console thing, I guess, but that'd be really goofy to fly like that. But yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about like sets of controls.
Okay. And I interrupted you anyway. So,
but it's to have that confidence in your own ability. You've got to know where your comfort level is. So it's like, I'm more comfortable letting somebody do the rodeo, learning how to like hover, and be like, it's fine. I'll be able to correct it. And for the newer students, I remember this specifically with like one guy in particular. They weren't like cocky, but they were just like they weren't sure of my ability. So it's like as soon as
you were training them, and they weren't sure of your ability.
They were new.
Oh.
They weren't like a kid, but they were like a young adult, I don't know, like mid-20s or something like that. So it's like they were kind of full of themselves a little bit. And it was like, oh, what is this other like mid-20, late 20s guy going to teach me? Yeah. So we get in there and, I'm like, okay, your controls. And he's just, and I'm like, you good? Yeah, take it. I've got it. And just to go from this to.
Yeah.
And it was just, you could hear him be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And immediate trust right there. That's a good way.
Exactly. And it's, you have to, even for air traffic, if I'm doing goofy stuff and my trainee's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't make all the things I've seen and you've taught me and all the stuff that like, what are you doing? You kind of erode some of that like trust in the trainer.
Yeah.
So you've got to be a little bit more on point and you've got to, do the right thing.
It's hard to explain to them. Oh, I know them. They come in a lot. We joke about this. We know this is what this means.
Yeah, or we're like, I was just, I didn't see the guy till it was too late, so I did this, that, and they're like, okay, I saw that guy, way out there, and you're like, oh, fair enough.
Whoops.
So to have the trainer be a little bit more on it and kind of have the trust from the trainee is important as well. But I always liked that with the helicopters. It was just more immediate.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess steep turns is kind of one of those where, like, people will do it and they'll be losing altitude and then pulling up and may over-control it. IFR is another one, yeah.
Chandell's always messed me up.
Yeah.
But
what was that?
It's like a figure 8, right?
Lazy 8 is the figure 8.
What is Chandell's?
Chandelle is like a half circle where you're coming up almost to a stall. But you're turning 180 degrees.
So any of those like turns around a point or something, like that's where I was like, man, I am not keeping this level at all.
Yeah. Yeah, the steep turns is the one you see it the most. And then I'll show people, like, tell them to use trim because they won't use trim. And so then they're, doing this kind of deal. And I'll tell them to put the trim in. And then I said, trim it so it'll just stay level. And then it'll go hold altitude all the way around.
Yeah. But that's that that finer technique kind of stuff that you know that they're just like, I could fight it, or I could use the techniques that I'm being taught. Yeah.
And I kind of tell people, like, I like to be lazy, you know. I'm a lazy pilot. I want to trim it out so I don't have to work all this. Yeah. I don't know if helicopters, do you have trim? Is there like a trim where you can just...
No, you have friction and you just kind of step on the ball to kind of get into the wind a little bit.
Okay.
At least the helicopters I flew did.
Well, y'all could, okay. But like you can... I mean, when you lift off, you have to situate yourself to get into the wind to take off. I mean, when you
or fight it, yeah,
okay. So you can do
if you're like if you're taking off on like a runway or like a taxiway, for the most part, if you're trying to go like straight to gain airspeed, you would crab into the wind and just kind of.
And that's then once a thing? I didn't even think that's a. I didn't. Know.
Yeah. So again, like we were talking about earlier with his 1129er landing, where it's like if you want that headwind, sometimes it'll be a quartering headwind. So if you're flying straight in a helicopter and you're getting that wind from the angle, it doesn't quite compute as well as if you crab and fly this way. Yeah. But with that headwind, kind of pick you up a little bit. Just generate lift a little bit better.
Well, what I'm thinking is like AirMed, you know, they'll take off right off the ramp over
Well, they have power.
Oh, that's the difference.
They don't care. They don't care.
I mean, they might turn into the wind a little bit.
Honestly, I've seen a couple of them, and I don't think it's. I think mainly it's been like the IFR guys. I don't think it's been because of gusty winds, but a lot of times they will use Bravo.
Oh, okay.
So they'll take off on Bravo and they'll get a little bit airspeed, but like, I mean, they have so much. Yeah. It's got to be really gusty for them to like need to do. I like the power, the max power ones where they just come straight up and then tilt it over.
Yeah.
But yeah,
those freak me out. Those make me not want to fly in a helicopter.
I love them. They're the best. What are you talking about? It's like an elevator. It's like an elevator, just straight up, boom, get off in your flight and start 1,000.
It's like,
yeah. I was teaching this guy to fly, and he had way more hours than me. He did his own flight school in North Georgia. He had an MD 500, the McDonnell Douglas, like the little birds.
Yeah,
but it was obviously a civilian version. We went and flew around with him.
You were teaching him?
I taught him instrument IFR. He has IFR rating with me, but he had like thousands of hours more than me. So it was one of those like I learned from him kind of thing.
Yeah.
We went and flew with him in his MD 500, and it was really cool because I had never flown in a turbine until that point. So he's sitting there, and it was just crazy the amount of power we had, and we're just zipping around North Georgia, and he had this plot of land that I guess I had billboard on it, and he's like, "Watch this," and we just flew along the fence line towards the billboard, and then he just because the collective is pitch, right? So if you increase the pitch on all the rotor blades collectively, hence the name of the thing, you generate lift 100%. And that's how you do those max performances. You just slowly you're increasing power, but you're also increasing lift for the whole helicopter. So we're already going like, I don't know, 40, 50 knots forward. And he went boop. And we just went, yep. Over the billboard.
Just hopped over.
And it was like,
that's so cool.
It was the coolest thing. It was so cool.
I loved
it. I loved it. A little personal roller coaster, I tell you, man. Was not safe, but it was fun.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because I know you've been flying a lot. I know obviously you've got a flight school. I think in the way we do it for air traffic, where it's like when we're getting somebody ready, the supervisors are the one that check them out and say you are certified after this point. But like they sit down every month with them and do that, skill check or whatever. So it's like anytime the supervisor sits down with them, there's like this immediate, and I can think back to when I was in training where it's like, oh, I don't work with you. This is nerve wracking.
Yeah.
So I imagine you doing that is the added benefit of like, this is going to be what it's like with the DP.
Yeah.
You don't know this person. They're literally here judging you. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm getting you ready to be judged.
A lot of people are nervous when I get in the plane with them, and I try not to talk. I'm evaluating them. Yeah. So I try to stay quiet and not really help them, and I just tell them what maneuver to do and then let them do it. And but generally it's the same where like the instructor they're with trains them for all that stuff, but they still have the nerves,
But because they're with that person most of the time, they kind of
more relaxed.
Yeah, because it's their person.
Yeah.
But with you, I think that's smart because it, again, like I said, it gets them ready to be like a literal evaluation. Like, no, this is serious.
Yeah.
Like these evaluations aren't a joke.
Yeah.
You can fail.
Yeah.
And it could cost you money. So it's like, how bad do you want it?
Because a lot of times my guys won't even send them to me unless they're ready.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, then that's how I want it, really, because I mean, I don't want
Waste of
to
time.
have
and
to,
stuff,
go
'Cause
up
it's
and
still
try
out
to
of their
teach
pocket.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For us, it's we have X amount of hours, X amount of things we're supposed to see, and then we get to a point where it's like everybody on the team agrees, like, hey, listen, I think you're ready. Everybody thinks they're ready. Hey, Soup, I think they're ready, because the supervisor is also part of the team,
okay.
so they're hearing all of this. So it's like, Soup, I think he's ready. All right, cool. I'll watch him, and then they sit down and watch him, and it's either they kind of get nervous under the supervisor, or they do what they've been doing for a month or so at that point, and then it's like, okay, I'm cool. It's a benefit for sure.
With people we get that might have come from another place, that's the hardest ones, because
Sure.
the primacy of the training. I've had some people I've sent for check rides who are like, yeah, you're good, and then they get in a check ride and like,
Not so
what
good.
happened?
Yeah, not so good.
Not so good, but they go back to that
Yeah.
primal, whether it's right or wrong, and
Well, yeah, that first, yeah. And we have the same thing for air traffic, where it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know if it's good or bad, but the idea of like, oh, you've got all these learned behaviors at this one facility, and now you're at this new facility.
yeah,
And we joke about it. We call it Lafayette-isms.
yeah,
It's like, this is what we do here.
yeah,
And this is what everybody is trained and kind of understands and knows. This is what we do. So it's like, either get on board or have some headaches.
yeah.
But yeah, that going back to what they know.
Yeah, they'll, and that anxiety of it being tested and being check ride, they'll just go back to that, even though, because I've been in on the debrief, and they'll say, yeah, well, she didn't know this or that, or he didn't know this and that, and you're like, well, I went over that the other day, we
Yeah.
did that, you did it fine.
We talked about it yesterday.
Yeah, that's how we talked about it.
Oh, I've never heard of that in my life.
Yeah, that's right. What? I know we talked about it. I remember. Yeah, but it's all fun. I do enjoy the whole teaching, and now I'm getting a bunch of CFIs, and we're
Well, this makes me feel even more special. You doing your discovery flight with me instead of pawning me off on somebody else. I'd gladly fly with anybody, but it was nice flying with you.
Oh yeah,
That was fun.
Well, of course I was going to take you up. I mean,
That was cool.
I'm gonna
Jake,
pawn you off.
Ryan loves you.
Yeah. As he should.
Yeah, you keep coming back.
Trying to figure out what to talk about.
Yeah,
Reading our text messages.
yeah, that's right.
It's come full circle.
That's right. Do you still do the woo?
No, we quit doing the.
We
woo.
haven't done it.
We haven't
Did
done
somebody did they come find you? Slap
No.
you with a restraining order? You can't do that.
No,
It's
we just,
copyrighted.
I don't know. We just decided to change it up and just change the.
No, they allow
intro.
it. They just say it's from DuckTales.
Yeah.
Well, I messed it up so many times, so
I always thought that was kind of part of the charm.
I've given up.
That's fair.
he's given up, so he's just like, just do whatever
Just
you
like
want.
Ryan, just say something.
On this episode of
Yeah.
Flight Tales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we got to let him go, huh?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. This has been fun though. I appreciate it. It's a good idea.
It's been a good episode
I
of.
think if you wanna come back
Happily, whenever you want, man.
on this episode of Flight Tales.
Jake hates work.
Oh, I thought we were doing the.
I was gonna let him go. Ooh.
I thought we were all doing it.
That's the new one. Jake hates work.
On this episode of Flight Tales. Jake hates Flight Tales. Woo.
You want to talk about not getting in trouble with the FAA? Can we not do that? In 3, 2, 1. On this episode of Flight Tales.
Yeah, on this.
I thought
He's going to do it. It's not my show.
I thought you're doing the. Ooh.
I'll do the woo.
I thought we
but
were
you'll
all
do
doing the woo.
Oh, okay.
That's what we do with Brennan.
Yeah. On this episode of Flight Tales.
Woo.
There it is.
Harmonious.
Perfect.